Hey everybody, good to see everybody on again. I just want to share a couple of recent observations with you all that tie into some previous videos and also address some of the questions that are out there. So let's jump in. I'm going to call this segment Observations du jour. We'll get back to completing my supercharging your retirement plans with crypto tomorrow. But in the meantime, let's talk about a few things that are very interesting. As always, in math, we trust. This is all about the future of money and financial freedom and giving back. It's interesting to note that a lot of people sometimes get a little bit depressed when Bitcoin isn't going up $2,000, $3,000 a day, which is kind of unusual when you think about it, but it is an issue. However, a few quick observations just to give people some comfort. Again, nothing is with a guarantee, and this is not financial advice, but there's a tremendous amount of support at the $35,000 level. Every time it dips below, the big volume jumps in and it gets accumulated. And I can only assume that the big institutions are jumping in and scooping stuff up every time it dips below 35K. What I can see here is, looking the way things are going, we could be getting back to 40,000 very soon. However, that requires a couple of things. One, $100 million of inflows per day into things like Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And I don't know if that can be sustained. A lot of people are getting to lose a little interest because they're not getting those big daily pumps, big daily gains. And the other factor that's very important is at the end of the month, there's options expiration. And that can bring about a lot of volatility. But either way, the way things look from a casual observation, things look very good for the end of the month. Another thing that popped up actually, Deribit just added a $400,000 strike for December 2021. So there are people now wanting to bet that Bitcoin will hit $400,000 by the end of this year. Who's taking that bet? That seems extremely ambitious. But then again, there's a lot of smarter minds out there doing these calculations, and who knows where we'll go. But that brings me to another topic, price prediction updates. This was an interesting one that I think you may have all seen, but I think it's worth sharing. Michael van der Pop, interesting fellow out of the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a lot of very smart people in the crypto area. He gave his peak high predictions for this bull cycle. Two things to note here. The high predictions, as you know, cryptos can spike. It doesn't mean it's the price that it will remain at or trade at for an extended period of time. And the second thing to note is for this bull cycle. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this is, one, his numbers are kind of interesting, and two, I've had a lot of questions about the bull cycle. So I'll address those separately. First of all, his price predictions for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin, first of all, 275 to 350K by the end of this bull cycle. That's a pretty vague term, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. But it's richer than mine because I estimated about 206,000 by the end of 2021, if all things go according to plan. Ethereum, he says 7,500 to 12,500 by the end of this bull cycle. Again, I'll talk more about what the bull cycles are. But my estimate, my price prediction based on a whole bunch of analyst reports is about 8,900 in the year 2025. So that's also very, very rich. There are some other names there. I just want to address one issue. I've had a lot of people ask me to analyze things like Cardano and Polkadot and Ripple. I tend to be very focused on core investments that I have, and I don't look at more than 10 assets at a time. I'm also very heavily into things like Tesla, PayPal, Square, MicroStrategy, as you know, Ethereum and Bitcoin, and a few others. And I'll talk more about my investment philosophy and strategies in a separate video. I was also asked to do a video on options trading, and I'll do that as well. So a lot of good stuff coming. So please like, please subscribe, hit the bell for new content. And I'm creating it as quickly as I can. But I want to just share with some of you and try dispel the confusion around bull cycles. So I put this simple little graphic together to help people understand exactly what it means. So let's start at the beginning. If we look at the very first halving, which happened right before the end of 2013, you can see typically the bull cycle revolves around the halving historically. Again, none of this is nothing more than historical analysis of what has happened and how we can use some of that to try and forecast what could happen during this third halving time. So, first halving, we all know what happened there, but it abruptly ended right before the end of 2014. The second halving, the biggest bull run where it went up to $20,000, you can see that began the bull run in June 2015 and ran again up until the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. The third halving, we all know when this bull cycle began after our little dip at the beginning of the C19 situation. And we have just bypassed probably the middle of this area. So the question I get a lot is, when is the bull cycle over? So if history repeats itself, that would mean, based on my crude analysis here, it could be over by October 2021. However, there's a few things that we need to take note of. First of all, bull cycles are getting longer. And most importantly, number two, the impact of the halving is less. Number three, we are seeing massive institutional inflows into this asset class, which is changing the game entirely. And we also have more derivatives and other tools and assets. So I do expect the volatility to be less, and maybe bull cycles will last a little longer as more institutional money flows into this asset class. So again, bear that in mind. We don't know when this bull cycle will end. A lot of people talk about it as if it's going to last for another 2 years. But historically, it could end in October 2021 if history repeats itself. So watch this space. Very interesting to watch. Now, another piece of an update. I did a video recently on GBTC. It has a new competitor. It's called Osprey, and the ticker for this is OBTC. So think GBTC, but O for Osprey. Now, they are launching next week or later this week, and they promise a fee of 0.49% versus 2% at Grayscale. So the question will be for all of us is, what is the premium that it will trade at? And I will analyze this as soon as the numbers are available and let you all know. Does it make sense to switch gears from GBTC to Osprey because the fee is less? Or will the premium be more than 15% or 20% like it is with GBTC? So let's see how that plays out. Again, very interesting to watch. In other news, as you know, I like to supercharge my crypto portfolio across multiple asset types. My video tomorrow will talk about that exactly. So again, subscribe if you can, if you're interested. But what was really interesting is in a news release that popped out was the Bitcoin revenue is going to make up nearly 15% of PayPal revenue next year. Now remember, PayPal's been around for 23 years. And all of a sudden, a brand new revenue line has exploded to making a huge proportion of the revenue. So what does this tell us? First of all, this is extremely bullish, not only for PayPal, but also for Square. I'm going to crunch the numbers and what the Bitcoin line of business revenue means for the stock price going forward. And should it be part of a trading strategy along the lines of what I did with MicroStrategy? More on that later. Also regarding my trading strategy, I tend to be like a hunter in the woods. I don't mind sitting up in a tree for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or even months or years for the right opportunity to come along. I don't feel compelled to trade all the time. I wait for the proper deal at the right time. And it's not about doing tons of deals every single day or week or month, but finding the right ones and getting the really big returns. Because when you have the big hitters, like MicroStrategy, you just need to do 1 or 2 of them a year, or even 1 every 2 years. So that's regarding PayPal and Square. Now, this is another interesting one that I came across. So basically, just over a week ago, 1 Bitcoin was the same price as a new Tesla Cybertruck. So talk about Bitcoin being deflationary. But I think it's very interesting when you put things in perspective and see how far Bitcoin has come in such a short period of time. Like a 4x since basically October to today is staggering. And I know the price predictions are kind of crazy and insane, Who knows where this will go? But again, when I analyze 35 experts in my Bitcoin price prediction model and similar type of thing for my Ethereum price prediction model, they can't all be wrong. And it is a supply and demand game. It's not a technical analysis game. Now, the other thing as well, a lot of people have been alarmed by all of the negative press that has hit Bitcoin from a lot of big financial institutions, central banks, etc. So I just want to touch on this real quick and talk about exactly what's going on. So I call it a tale of two garden types. So we have the firms that are pro-crypto, the Goldman Sachs, the Citibanks, the JP Morgans, and entire countries like Venezuela, Iran, Switzerland, etc. Then you have the groups that are very against Bitcoin, like HSBC. It's funny, when you think about HSBC, a lot of press call it a London bank. Technically, it is a London bank, but more than half of the revenue actually comes from Hong Kong, which means it's heavily influenced by the Chinese market. So they may have a hidden agenda somewhere in their negativity towards crypto. The European Central Bank, you all heard about Lagarde and, that corrupt official slamming Bitcoin. It's kind of crazy when they slam Bitcoin for being used for nefarious activities. When so is cash, so is gold, so are diamonds. It's kind of crazy. And even Danish banks are against it. But what's happening also in the US is a lot of banks are getting charters to be crypto banks as we go forward. Places like Wyoming, Alaska, really, really growing very fast and embracing. And you got cities like the mayor of Miami that wants to really embrace crypto. So you're going to see this huge deviation between those groups that are pro and those that are against. And just pick who you listen to. I think it's always very important as well to listen to both sides and get a true story, to get a balanced perspective in your head. So, Switzerland, extremely bullish on Bitcoin, but not all Swiss banks are bullish. I actually have a UBS account, and it's funny to hear that they are against crypto. Maybe we should reconsider that relationship. The other thing that's popping up a lot is a lot of people talking about how Bitcoin is using up so much power and energy. There was a big outage in Iran today from something like 45,000 mining rigs that basically crippled the grid in the country of Iran. However, what it is driving is more renewable energy. And if you look at where some of the biggest mining organizations are built today, they're built beside geothermal power in places like Iceland, hydroelectric power, natural gas, etc. So it's helping people rethink the importance of energy, how energy can be used, where it can be pulled from in a sustainable way, and ultimately how it can be stored. Maybe there could be a long-term connection between some of the plans that Tesla has with grids and storage of energy into mining. Who knows? Watch those keys. This is an interesting, and again, it's a politically charged issue, but it's so funny. I did the video about a week or 10 days ago on the best ways to store your crypto, which was, of course, very political. But ever since then, the press has been hot around people losing their keys. So you've got this $280 million case of James Howells in the UK, who threw out a computer, and he's offering a lot of money to dig up a landfill to a Newport City Council. The other interesting case locally here in San Francisco, a German programmer, Stefan, lost his keys. He's got 2 chances left to guess. And the value, actually looking at the price today of Bitcoin, is way over $240 million. So again, the point is, watch those keys. If you are in control of your own fiduciary, watch it. Be careful. Make sure you're very organized and you have all sorts of disaster recovery plans in place. Final topic for today. A lot of people compare Bitcoin to gold, and the question is why? There's very little parallels between. This is a Sortino ratio of Bitcoin to gold, which is like a modified Sharpe ratio, which I'll talk more about in my options class. But if you look at the actual returns over 1 year, 4 years, and 8 years, there is literally very little comparison with gold. But gold is the traditional number one hedge for inflation, and Bitcoin is going to be the new, or is already the new hedge for inflation, as can be seen here by these simple numbers. Scammers, you all know them. I'm active in the comments. I have people now helping me rip out the scammers as they post, but thank you for all being on top of it. Just remember, black button around Invest Answers. I'm also setting up a Patreon account, a website, Twitter account. That's all coming, and I'll share that with you all soon. Thank you so much again. If you're craving more, again, please subscribe, hit the bell if you like it, and more good information tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.